Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. All 6 terrorists involved in the Pathankot air base attack have been killed. 5 days after it first began, the Pakistani Prime Minister called Prime Minister Modi and assured him of full support in the investigations, even though no Indian official has said so. A Pakistan Foreign Ministry statement late on Monday night said India had shared information regarding the attack. Security forces are still combing the Pathankot air base area to clear the area of explosives. But as the dust settles, questions over security lapses are mounting. The Gurdaspur SP, whose car was hijacked, is being debriefed. But where does the buck stop when it comes to responsibility for delayed responses to the first security alert on New Year's Eve? Also on Left, Right and Centre, the Supreme Court wraps diesel car manufacturers on the knuckles and says the ban on the registration of new diesel cars will continue into the new year. This is a stinging comment to car manufacturers, including Toyota and Mercedes. The court asked, are your vehicles emitting oxygen? But first, of course, let's go across to the latest developments on Pathankot. Soon after inspecting the airbase, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar said that Defence Security Corps Jawans died because of bad luck. Only one Jawan died in actual combat. Let's just listen in.
थोड़े गैप्स दिखते हैं, वो इन्वेस्टिगेशन करने के बाद समझ जाएंगे, लेकिन आई डोंट थिंक हम लोगों ने सिक्योरिटी पे कुछ कॉम्प्रोमाइज किया है। एक छोड़ के बाकी कोई भी डायरेक्ट ऑपरेशनल इसमें गरुड़ का जो कॉर्पोरल गुरसेवक जो इनकी डेथ हो गई, 5 DSC जवान जो गए, दैट इज थोड़ी टाइमिंग में आई विल कॉल इट मोर ऑफ अ बैड लक.
Well, my colleague Sudhiranjan Sen now joins us for more. Sudhiranjan, we understand that combing operations are still on. There are still explosives in the area. Tell us what's going on. The Defence Minister's comment that 5 of the 6 deaths on the Indian side, sheer bad luck really, an unfortunate comment from the Defence Minister.
No, on the contrary, Maya, I would say that's not an unfortunate comment. What he was basically trying to say is that, or he was going through the sequence of incidents when in that press conference when that happened. What he was basically trying to say is that the Garud commando who died, he died fighting off the terrorists. Now that happened inside the the area where vehicles are repaired. That is a mechanical transport wing, so to say, that you can call it, and that is the first point of contact that happens at 3:30 in the night. And subsequent to that, they come out of that area and they take a right turn and they try to go towards the technical area and the fuel dumps and the ammunition dumps. Now on their way, when they go into that, they find the DSC mess. Now mind you, everything in these bases start very early, and they would have seen the lights of that mess on and gone in, and they found these 5 people who perhaps were starting to prepare breakfast or get the mess ready, and they were killed. What the Defence Minister is saying, that it is sheer timing and bad luck, in the sense, had they not been there, they wouldn't have died, and the casualty figures perhaps would have been much less. On the ground, on the other hand, what is happening is, yes, a lot of combing operation is happening, a lot of sanitization operations are happening, and that will happen, that will continue at least for another 24 hours. Why? Because this base is a very big base. It's a huge area. And not only that, there are several areas which are wooded. And so all those needs to be checked and rechecked before they can be completely clear that no more explosives or booby traps have been left behind. Maya.
Right, Sudhiranjan, thanks very much for joining us with that. Well, as we said, that it is the 5th day since that incident began. All 6 terrorists killed. The Pakistani Prime Minister spoke to Prime Minister Modi as well, assuring India of all assistance. But even before the operation was declared over, that call took place. In that 15-minute long telephone conversation with Prime Minister Sharif, Prime Minister Modi, sources say, spoke in a tough manner.
Even before Pathankot operation is declared over, Nawaz Sharif called up Prime Minister Modi to assure India of Pakistan's support. In his 15-minute long telephone conversation with Sharif, Prime Minister Modi, sources say, talked tough and asked Pakistan to take firm and immediate action against the organizations and individuals responsible for the Pathankot terrorist attack. An official release from the Prime Minister's office said Nawaz Sharif assured Prime Minister Modi of prompt and decisive action against terrorists. However, it didn't specify if Pakistan had accepted the terrorists as their citizens. But India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval called up his Pakistani counterpart General Janjua and passed on important details like the handlers across the border who directed the terrorists, phone numbers in Pakistan that were called by these fidains, and specifications of the equipment used by them. The most immediate fallout, future of the Foreign Secretary level talks between India and Pakistan suddenly looks uncertain now.
पाकिस्तान की सरकार के साथ वहां का पूरा तंत्र, पूरी व्यवस्था, यानी कि वहां की सेना और आईएसआई भी इस प्रक्रिया का समर्थन करती है, अनुमोदन करती है.
While there is growing pressure to call off the talks, there is also a counter argument. Every time leaders decide to carry forward the process of dialogue, terror groups always try to scuttle it. So should terrorists be allowed to dictate terms? In New Delhi, Sandeep Phukan, NDTV.
Well, to talk about what those unanswered questions really are, we have with us from the BJP, Sambit Patra. From the Congress, we have Ashwini Kumar. We also have former Ambassador and former Deputy National Security Advisor Leela Ponnappa joining us from her residence in the studio. Defence and Security Analyst Manoj Joshi from the Observer Research Foundation, as well as Ajay Shukla, who writes for the Business Standard. Ajay, I'm going to actually ask you the first question because you've written a very scathing piece on the way this operation has been handled by the centre. What specific questions do you find the most uncomfortable?
I think that the one thing that would strike anyone who has examined how this unfolded is how, with such superb intelligence, such pinpoint intelligence about how many people there were, what their targets were, where they were, what time they were likely to strike and so on, we still managed to lose 7 Javans, 20 injured, allow the terrorists to fight on for 3 days and generally convey the impression of a very successful terrorist attack. Given the information that we had, and that was undoubtedly an intelligence success, even a coup, I think that these terrorists should have been wrapped up very, very quickly. And the problem was that instead of getting the right forces to do it, who just happened to be located right next door at Pathankot cantonment, the biggest cantonment in India, they decided for some unknown reason, the National Security Advisor decided to fly in the NSG from Delhi, 150 people, wholly inadequate for the task, not trained and geared to secure large areas. They are geared for pinpoint strike operations. It was just bungled. With that gold intelligence that we had, we made a hash of it.
Okay, all right. Before I bring in our political guests as well, Leela Ponnappa, let me come across to you because you've also worked in the NSA's office. How are these decisions made? As Ajay is pointing out, you had people better equipped, better qualified, perhaps certainly those who knew the area better, closer by. Why this decision to send in the NSG and the Defence Security Corps that indeed lost its men in this operation?
My own assessment is that the decision to send the NSG was probably a harking back to the criticism that happened during the Mumbai attacks, when the government of the day was criticized for not being able to send the NSG at short notice. So in a way, this was trying to deal with the current situation based on a past experience without taking into account the ground realities. But I do believe that in terms of the significance of this attack, it has to go beyond just the armed forces, and there is a huge national security issue here which warrants the setting up of the equivalent of the Kargil Review Committee. There needs to be a Pathankot Review Committee as well, because I think it's a little too soon to point fingers. The blame game has already started, but we need to be honest with ourselves and examine exactly what happened when. And now, to answer your question on how these decisions are taken, there is a Cabinet Committee on Security, or in an emergency, there are institutions that meet in order to take these decisions. Sometimes it works. In the case of Mumbai, it didn't. In the present case, I don't know precisely how the decision was taken, but there are institutional arrangements which can and should work.
Okay, all right. Sambit Patra, coming to you, the Pakistan Foreign Office issued a statement late last night saying that they were going to be working with India on the information it had provided. The fact that the Indian government had provided this information is a piece of news that came from the Pakistani side. Why wasn't it communicated in Delhi? At what level was this done? Was it through the Ministry of External Affairs? Was it directly by the NSA? What can you tell us?
In fact, Maya, as a spokesperson of the party, I am not privy to what the government does. But having said that, I would draw from what the Raksha Mantri's press conference had to say. And the Raksha Mantri was categorical in stating that let's wait. Right time, right communication would be made, and certain amount of communication has been withheld as of now because the combing operations are still on. So I would suggest that we should patiently wait, and I think very soon when the Raksha Mantri would be addressing a second press conference, or anyone from the government would be addressing a second press conference, these details can be attended to. But there are a few other important issues which were raised during the course of discussions which I would also like to enlighten upon. Number one, yes, I agree that every operation has to have a lesson which is to be taken home, and I'm sure that Pathankot also would have a lesson which we would buy. But to say that it was a lost operation would be wrong. Rather, I would say it was an operation which was successful in the sense that two most important targets of the terrorists were missed. The target number one was the strategic asset, and target number two, I would assume the pattern that the terrorists have been following in the past would have been a hostage crisis. The 3,000 families that the Raksha Mantri was speaking about, surely that was averted. Thirdly, three things was brought about by Mr. Ajay Shukla. One was intelligence. He was also quite forthcoming in saying that intelligence was A grade, one of the best intelligence. Well, yes, if the failures, if there are any, were of the government, I believe a good intelligence was also of the government then. Secondly, if you say that the length of the operation is directly proportional to the success of the operation, I don't buy that, because I firmly believe that there is no hurry to establish a Guinness Book of World Record or something of that sort. Even small operations are sometimes quite lengthy operations. Experts would agree to that. Thirdly, whether right forces were put into place or not, well, yes, time would say that, but I think each of our forces, the military, the NSG, the DSC, each of the forces that India deploys are the right forces and have right kind of training.
Okay, all right. Ajay, you want to quickly respond to Sambit Patra, and I'll bring in Ashwini Kumar Manu Joshi as well.
Yes, Sambit is, I understand he's the party's spokesperson and this is his job, but it's an unconvincing argument to call anything a success by painting a worse scenario. There is always something worse that could have happened. But the fact was that we knew that there were these militants over there. We knew what they were going to do, and we could have stopped even the deaths of these 7 people. The deaths of 7 people are ascribable to the mistakes that have been made. So, I mean, just to say that it could have been worse and this could have happened and that could have happened.
That's a way of saying the lesser of two evils, in a sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Ashwini Kumar, the Congress has also come out today and spoken on these attacks. They've also talked about the Prime Minister's visit to Lahore and questioned what kind of dialogue can indeed take place. Nonetheless, the Congress party is also well aware of the fact that every time there is an approach towards some kind of rapprochement with Pakistan, there is an attempt to derail these talks. This was perhaps expected as well. Why is the Congress then saying that at this point in time, proceed with caution, even though the Congress has also always supported dialogue with Pakistan?
Well, not only is the Congress saying proceed with caution, even Mr. Yashwant Sinha is on record as having said that the atmosphere now is not conducive to taking the dialogue further. Please don't forget that we had started the comprehensive dialogue and we suspended it after the Mumbai attacks. Please understand that at the end of the day, for any initiative in foreign policy to be successful, even from our own point of view, it has to have the support of the people of the country. The atmosphere today in the country, the sensitivities and the sentiments in the country today are such that there is complete distrust with Pakistan. And all evidence that has been collected so far, it is available in the public domain so far, points out conclusively, decisively and pointedly at Pakistan being complicit in it. Now it is for Pakistan, first of all, to dispel that very strong perception of its complicity in the entire operation. Everyone knows that ISI is the force behind these attacks. Everyone knows that ISI is the organization that is actually in command. So we can legitimately today ask whether, if we are right in this conclusion, it is at all going to be useful or of any value for our Prime Minister to shake hands with Nawaz Sharif. And if indeed Nawaz Sharif is in control over his military establishment and ISI, then surely he has a lot of explanation to give to all of us as to how these attacks took place in the first place. So therefore, we need to know that peace eventually has to be a dividend of power, which means that while we want to pursue peace with Pakistan, while we want good relations with Pakistan, in an atmosphere where terror is lurking in the shadows, we cannot have any meaningful or purposive dialogue. That has been India's stated position. And all of a sudden, we find the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, taking a trip to Pakistan only to be saddled with a terrorist attack.
Okay, I'll come to you, Sambit, but let me just get Manoj Joshi into this also. Manoj, you know, we're hearing sort of predictable positions being taken, although it's interesting to hear the Congress say right now proceed with caution, and, you know, why did the Prime Minister go and shake his hand when it could have well been the BJP in that role 2 years ago. This idea of proceeding with caution as far as talks with Pakistan is concerned is not a new one. Every time there has been an attempt by the principals to try and move dialogue process forward, something or the other takes place. We've seen a complete derailment after UFA and now this. So if we're going to keep tying ourselves up in knots and going back to the same stated positions, why bother with this stopover in Lahore? Why bother with these phone calls at all? Why just not accept that, look, it's not working, let's just agree that it's not working?
Well, you see, I think often something is not understood is that since the time of Rajiv Gandhi, we've had a particular doctrine in dealing with Pakistan. This doctrine involves engaging Pakistan regardless of what Pakistan throws at us and strengthening our defenses, trying to strengthen our shield. So we've kept this process of engagement and containment going right through. Now, the problem is that if you look at this particular attack, I think any sensible person would say that the aim of this attack is to derail the dialogue. If the aim of the attack is to derail the dialogue, why allow that to happen? Meaning then you're helping the terrorists. Meaning,
which has always been the argument that's been made.
Now, my point here is that, as I said, this had two components. One is that you develop your shield, you shield yourself against what Pakistan throws at you. And number two is that you engage, and with the process of engagement over time, you try and normalize Pakistan. I don't have a problem with the dialogue. I have a problem with the fact that this country has not been able to fabricate an effective shield. And we find repeated instances of incompetence, shoddiness, which we see in display in the case of Pathankot. There have been 5 instances
in that region.
5 penetrations in that very region since September of 2013. And yet you had advance information here. These guys came in. And the handling of the thing was disastrous. The NSG went in on Friday evening. My understanding is it was only deployed next morning. It wasn't deployed on Friday evening. And you allowed those poor DSC Jawans who are retired service personnel, you put them up in front, which is absurd.
When you have a strong
you have
base right
thousands
over
of
there.
people, as Ajay has pointed out, the 25,000-50,000
can only
strong
be
people
explained in terms of a turf war and an attempt by the security establishment headed by the NSA himself to corner the credit for the intelligence and the operations. The army has been, even when it was inserted into the thing, it was in terms of the command and control marginal to what was happening. There was squabbling over the command and control, but the army was never in control.
I have one point I want to add before, and that's
yes, from that. I'm just coming to you.
Now, I want to know who was in charge of the counter-terror operation. Was it the base commander?
That's a question that
the base commander?
Raised.
Was it the base commander? Yeah. Was it the Western Air Command chief? Was it the Punjab police? Was it Mr. Doval in Delhi? If Mr. Doval in Delhi, I think it was a big mistake. You can't. Doval is a strategic commander of national security. He's not a tactical commander of a counter-terrorist operation.